Welcome to our first ever Talking Hands. I'm the Prodigal Fool, and I'm joined by my co-blogger on the Prodigal Guide, Straight-Six.
Hello and welcome, folks.
So guys, Talking Hands is basically a simple concept. It's designed for very simple people, simpletons if you like, like us. So we have a chat about watches over a glass or two of something pleasant. And actually, truth be told, it's not that simple, it turns out. This is our third attempt at shooting one of these. The last two were such drunken disasters that they proved ultimately unusable. Now, we'll be doing more of these in the future, but we thought we'd start with something very mainstream, yet mythical, for lack of a better word.
I think it's fair to say that.
It's the Rolex Cosmograph Daytona. Today we have a steel version with a white face.
I don't think any luxury watch has the kind of public recognition and prestige, short of the Submariner, that the Daytona has. And there's no denying the fact that this essentially cuts both ways, good and bad. Second point, the overall build quality and feel of this watch, whether you're stroking the bracelet, pressing the buttons, is simply fabulous. I really would emphasize that. It's a gorgeous watch, and even feeling this one now reminds me of just how well made it is. The balance of design elements, I think, is spot on too. The way the dial is configured, the overall casing diameter, which is 40 millimeters, means there's no denying it can be worn by virtually anyone. And that means women and even sissy-wristed gents like me. Thirdly, I think the name of the watch itself provokes, well, I guess if I say, a plethora of hot-blooded reactions and historical connections. And it's impossible really for one to stay calm and collected in this. Most importantly, you can have a reaction either way. Hate or love, this will provoke it. And last, perhaps this goes some way to explaining why I bought a Daytona several years ago at about 2,000 euros over list price.
Ooh. You touched on it a little bit. My first point was going to be provenance. You know, it's the sort of mythic classic status of these watches. You know, it's the fact that anyone who's even vaguely interested in watches very quickly finds out about the Cosmograph.
Sure.
It's the Paul Newman Association, it's the incredible prices that these things now fetch, the vintage versions anyway at auction, the celebrity endorsements, you know, even Elle Macpherson's got one, for goodness sake, she passes around.
Even Elle.
Yeah. And of course, part of that is also the artificially short supply that Rolex impose on the production of these things. I think objectively that this is just a great-looking modern sports chronometer. Maybe not the most elegant, but certainly the most mythic. And it's quintessentially Rolex.
Can I ask you for 1 second? I'll stop you. You said not the most elegant. Why do you say it's not the most elegant?
I guess I'm just thinking that, you know, if you were really looking for superb design, you might... I don't know, you could look at a Patek Chrono, you could look at a Jaeger-LeCoultre.
Okay.
You know, I'm not suggesting this is the pinnacle of chronograph design, but it is, I was about to say, quintessentially Rolex. It really represents, I think, the best of their design language in the chrono. And the last thing, of course, that I like about it is personal history. This is not just any old watch. This is a present that I bought for Mrs. Fool a few years ago. I touched on it to some degree, the bling. I don't know, I can't think of a better word. It's too bling. We've written about this on the site before, Rolex's tendency to just sort of bling everything up. And when I talk about bling, I'm talking about the really shiny center links here, the sort of the white gold on the dial.
Polished
lugs. It just feels a little bit too much like jewellery and less like what it should be, which is basically a tool watch. I mean, this is the appeal of these watches, or at least it used to be. They're supposed to be tool watches, and now it looks a little bit too much like a piece of jewelry.
But I want to ask you something. Do you? The funny thing is, has that affected or impacted Rolex in any way? The fact that they've changed it like that, the fact that they have blinked it up and made it more jewelry-like, doesn't appear to be slowing sales, right? So
no,
what does that mean?
But it has. Well, look at the price of vintage models. Now, is that what's going on there? I would suggest that people who genuinely like the aesthetics of the Daytona are now going vintage because they don't like the new models, and people perhaps who are piling into new models are hoping that these will have that sort of value in 20 years' time. I doubt whether they will. Okay, we'll see. And I guess that sort of leads me on to the second thing that I don't like about the Daytona. They are artificially expensive. You know, Rolex have very deliberately set out to create limited supply and push up the prices. They become this legend, and people are paying insane prices for these, whether they're vintage or new. And as a result, and I guess this is my third point, they're just a little bit too obvious, you know? Anyone who makes a bit of money, who has a vague interest in watches, sort of covets a Daytona and goes out and buys one, okay, cool. I mean, they're lovely watches, but I don't know, if you really like watches, wouldn't you want to seek out something just a little bit more interesting than that?
A little more special, a little more unique. Well, look, I mean, I think you've made a number of excellent points.
As always, folks.
There are a number of things that I totally agree with you on straight off the bat. The fact that it is obvious, the fact that it is too bright, that it is too blingy, it's become far too much jewelry-like. So, is it the most unobtainable watch on the market? Yes, it bloody well is. You go anywhere in any major city, and supposedly this watch, which like you've said, they artificially limit the supply of, is being worn by a number of people.
Well, that's the thing, yeah. The hard-to-get watch, which every fat banker has on his wrist, so...
And you're thinking, well, so how hard is it to get? Well, you need about 7,000 or 8,000 euros. So, in some ways, the closest parallel we have is to the sports car market, the 911. So, there are those of us who love to love the 911, those of us who love to hate it. But the reality is, it is in and of itself, par excellence, a classic sports car. So whether you're an absolute idiot off the street who just got his big fat bonus and can't think of anything better to buy with his money, or a connoisseur who's saved up for 25 years to get his 911, the point being is you'll arrive at that same conclusion. I think the Daytona is a perfect representation of the watch world.
Yeah, I think that's a very fair point. So this is, yeah, I would agree with that. The 911 of sports chronos, it's too obvious, it's too easy, and yet that doesn't detract from the fact that it's a phenomenal watch.
That's it.
If I could go back and make the same decision again, yes, I would. For Mrs. Fool, absolutely. She loves this watch, and I love watching her wear it, so no question there. Would I buy one for myself? I think that's a really, really tough call. Ultimately, no, I wouldn't. It's too bling, and it's too much of an obvious choice for too much money. I'd love a vintage model. I would not buy a contemporary one.
Okay, well, look, I mean, I'll challenge you on that last point. I don't think it's too much money at Daytona. I think even at the current list price, which in euros, folks, I think is somewhere around 7,500.
Yeah, but list price, you didn't pay list price. Most people don't. They have to pay over the odds for it. At list price, I might almost be with you.
For the money, at retail price, I say Daytona represents phenomenal value, heritage, and history, all packed up into one. I don't think you can find any other watch at that kind of money. Now look, as we were saying beforehand, I bought one recently. I never really connected with the watch, and that's, I think, perhaps because I felt not only a little bit self-conscious, but infantile in why I chose it. It was simply because it was the de facto unattainable watch to buy.
It was the obvious.
Yeah, sure. It was the obvious thing to do. So today, having had a little bit, oh, thank you.
Yeah, we just finished the wine, guys.
Yeah, I mean, you can tell how long we've been filming for, right?
Again.
Today, I think my idea of the perfect modern chronograph would have to be a Zenith movement, early generation Daytona. We're talking 89 or 90, black dial with the hanging dial configuration, which means the word Cosmograph is 2 millimeters to the south, folks.
Yeah, spot the watch note. So,
and one last, excuse me, spot the watch note. And one last thing, map bracelet.
Yes.
No more center links. No more polished center links. That's no good.
Guys, thank you so much for joining our first Talking Hands, or at least the first one we were able to air. So join us next time when we'll still be squabbling, we'll certainly still be drinking, and just generally behaving like watch nerds again. Until then, guys, all we can say is wear your watches in very good health.
Good health and cheers.